As this channel has grown a little bit, I thought it might be worth revisiting some of the writing tools that I just simply cannot live without. You know, that I think that sounds a bit more dramatic than I had intended it to. I could live without Campfire, but what I meant to say was that I couldn't write without, or at least would struggle writing without. Some of these tools I use on a daily basis, others are more timely and specific at different parts of the writing, but here are 5 of them to get into that you may find helpful. First is going to be perhaps the most important tool for me over the last 6 years, that has been Campfire. First with Campfire Pro and later with Blaze, which simply became Campfire Writing, which is probably the best name they've come up with so far. Campfire is one of several programs that all essentially do the same thing. They help you organize your background. It breaks down into things like characters, timelines, family trees, religions, races, encyclopedia entries, maps, etc. At this point, I've put hundreds of hours into Campfire just putting in all kinds of data that I can refer to later, because quite frankly, I forget shit. Like a lot of shit, all kinds of shit. That's a lot of times to say shit in a YouTube video, but I forget things all the time, and so it's really helpful for me to have a go-to place that I'm going to be able to reference. Something that I know that I have put a lot of information into that can keep me kind of on the same path that I was trying to do when I started writing, and that I continue to add to as I continue writing. I think sometimes the only difficulty I have is making sure I actually add things to Campfire. Without something like Campfire to help me organize my chaotic mess of thoughts, I think I would very quickly write myself into all kinds of corners or drive myself right into several plot holes. Now, I use Campfire as the browser, but they have a couple other ways that you can access it. You can access it on your computer with a desktop app, and they've also recently added a mobile app. The mobile app I have not used yet, really. It's not something that I've gone into, but I can see how it would be helpful. There actually is a different mobile app that I use that we'll get to towards the end of this list. The next tool that I use, many of you actually probably use a lot, but it's one that I want to add a very important caveat to, and one that maybe if you are using it a certain way, it could actually be hurting your writing rather than helping your writing. And that's going to be like Grammarly, your Pro Writing Aid, those kind of writing assistant. I've used several from Grammarly to AutoCrit to Pro Writing Aid, and currently my favorite at the moment is Pro Writing Aid. It helps me fix a lot of the grammatical issues I just straight up miss and potentially reword awkward sentences. But it's also something that I make sure to turn the fuck off every single time I'm starting to write. It can be one of those things that it's just always there. It's like if you're using Pro Writing Aid, it's in the little corner. It's always telling you that you're messing things up. It's giving you a little percentage score saying, hey, you could be better. And I think something like that, having that while you're in the first draft stage, the second draft, third draft, fourth draft even, it can be very detrimental to you getting out the things that you need to get out. The very like cathartic thing of just getting all that writing out there on the page. And I think it's really important that if you do use something like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid, turn that shit off early. Turn it off and keep it as a tool that you would use later. Use it as a tool that you would go through your entire manuscript at a later date to try and like fix it up, find the issues that you've made, and make it like a little bit prettier before sending it to your editor. Don't use it real time, because I promise you, if you're anything like me in my writing process, it's going to make you second guess everything, which is going to make it harder to get that story down. Just fucking start writing. And when you do that, things will start flowing. You can fix it later, and Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly or AutoCrit or any of those will be there to help you later. It'll just have more to work with, more things to tell you that you got wrong, and you can learn as you go through it later. And maybe the next time you write, not make quite as many mistakes. At least that's the hope. I don't know that I do. I think I still make the same amount of mistakes. Sorry to my editor. I apologize. Number 3 is going to be something that is used sparingly, just like the writing assistants. and it's going to be kind of solving the same issue. It's going to be like text-to-speech software. I cannot say text to speech. Why was that so difficult? I'm gonna be replaced by TTS anyway. As I'm just a mess, y'all. Anyway, all you need to do is listen to this.
And for the errors Grammarly misses, you can use a shitty TTS reader like this one. Because you see, it helps you hear things you might otherwise miss.
This helps me sometimes discover things that I would have normally missed, kind of listening back to my own writing and hearing when things just sound a little bit off. It's very different from reading it in your head, I think, because it adds this distance between you and the writing, where you actually get to experience it kind of the way other people would versus how you would, because when you're writing, you have a general idea of what you are trying to say. And then when you're reading back, especially reading back in your head, you know what you're trying to say. But when you're listening to text to speech, it kind of just separates you enough where you can not necessarily know what's happening next, even though you wrote it. It's kind of hard to explain, but just trust me and give it a try, especially because TTSReader, the reader that I just showed and used, is free. They do have a premium version if you want to spring for it, but I personally have always used the free version, and the legacy version works fine. Now, if you don't want to use a TTS reader for whatever reason, including perhaps you don't want to feed your writing into something else for fears of how that will work, another way you can do this is actually recording yourself. So record yourself reading aloud, whether you use your phone, you use your computer. I personally love a software, which is what I'm recording this on, called OBS. It's open source, it's free. It's pretty easy to set up, especially if you're going to do something simple like just recording your audio, and I find it very easy to do a playback with it. But something like that would be the same kind of idea as TTS, although I would caution that if you're reading aloud, you're gonna find the issues yourself as you're reading aloud, so it may take a little bit of a longer process. But honestly, you know what? You could do both. Why not do both? But basically the whole idea is listen to your own writing one way or another, because that will help you hear the things that are being written instead of just assuming what has been written. It just helps to separate a little bit. The next tool is a very obvious one, and I even hesitated putting it on here, but if you're anything like me, you write in lots of different places, and that's why I've really come to use things like Google Drive all the damn time. Google Drive has just been a staple of how I do my writing, really since I started writing with seriousness back in about 2015, 2016. And it's because it lets me write when I'm at work. I have a full-time job. I am not a full-time author. I'm not a full-time YouTuber. Working to get there, but not there yet, believe it or not. Actually still very much in the red with the writing. So that fucking sucks. But with Google Drive, it's allowed me to kind of fix something that I was doing for a while, which was taking my manuscript, putting it in an email, emailing it to myself, reading it that way, and that's like having these multiple ridiculous versions of my writing because that's how I was doing it. When I'm at my full-time job, I have been using my lunch since 2016 to write. It is a time when I have really very few distractions. I just sit at my computer and write. And I think that's why Google Drive has been such a helpful thing to me, because it's much simpler just to throw it in there as it and get a brand new version of it without like all the mess that comes with it. And it's, you know, if the free version should be fine for most of your writing. There's other opportunities here. If you go back to the first thing, Campfire, they have a manuscript writer. So if they're already in a cloud with Campfire, so it could be your one-stop shop. Scrivener, I think, is very similar. There's a lot of options. OneDrive on your Windows PC. There's tons of options, but what I just recommend is having your writing in a cloud somewhere so you can access it wherever you are, because you don't know when the inspiration to write is going to strike, which is very important for the next part. Note-taking software is perhaps one of the most important things to me because of how my brain works. I have crazy ADHD, and it's just the things like occur to me randomly when I'm just out walking or sleeping even sometimes. So I use note-taking software. I had a note-taking software that I really just used because it was there on my phone, just called Samsung Notes. But what I found recently is that there's actually a free note-taking software in Windows that you can also download on your phone, and they talk together. It's called OneNote. It's simple, low-weight app that transfers neatly between the two, so you can read your PC notes on your phone and your phone notes on your PC. It's ideal for me when I think of new plot twists, characters, or scenes that I want to incorporate, but are more like footnotes and not full ideas that I want to sketch out in detail in, say, Campfire, for example. It's just something that works well for me. It helps me to kind of get those brief thoughts that I know I'm going to forget. Like, again, the ADHD shit. So I know that I'm going to forget them if I don't write them down. Doesn't mean that I'm going to use them. It just means that I want to have that idea written down so I can reference it and decide later after some thought if that's something I want to actually incorporate into my story or not. There's another note-taking software that's kind of new to me and probably new to you that I also want to talk about, but it's one that I can understand if people just didn't want to do it. And it's called AudioPen. AudioPen is a note-taking software that lets you record the note, and then AudioPen uses AI to try and take your recorded words and put them into a script. I don't actually know how this is AI and not just it trying to listen to your words and do like a transcript, kind of like what has been in every single YouTube video that I've ever made. There's closed captions in there for a reason. I don't touch them. Sometimes they're weird. Sometimes they're really weird. Notice that, like some very strange things that it thinks I'm saying. Maybe I need to enunciate more, but AudioPen works really well so far from what I've seen. It actually seems to get what I'm trying to say, and it tries to create it in a very readable fashion, but there are some issues with it. It has a paid version and a free version, and the free version is actually pretty damn limited. The free version limits you to about 3 minutes of recording at a time, but the worst part of the limit is that you can only have about 10 notes on the site saved for free. I don't know about you, but I take shit tons of notes. I think I have hundreds of little notes. Some of them are pretty extensive, some are short, like 2 freaking words. And to have something that only allows me that, like 10 notes, that's kind of a deal breaker. So I have not used it much since then because I am not willing yet to pay for it because I don't know that it's worth it. It costs $75 per year to use AudioPen Unlimited. Now, this unlimited version is a lot more helpful and has a lot more leeway to do things with, I believe, up to 15 minutes of recording and unlimited note taking, but still, that's a pretty hefty price for a tool. But thankfully, it does not auto-renew. You have to tell it that you want to auto-renew. These are 5 tools that make writing for me infinitely more manageable, but I want to hear from you directly. What are some of the writing tools that you use that you absolutely have to have? What are some of the things that make your writing process easier? There may be tools that I have never heard of that might make my writing earlier, so please share. Let me know how I can make my process a little bit easier. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mark, and I really appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful day.